right, on today's episode, mi gente, we have a very special guest who is going to be giving us a holistic perspective on not just like the importance of wellness from the financial perspective, but the importance of wellness from the physical perspective. And, one of the things that I have personally experienced in my life and seen with even family members is when your health ain't right, your money ain't right. Our health has an intricate relationship with our ability to earn income, our ability to build wealth. And so, if we're not talking about how to take care of ourselves physically, there is literally no point in talking about how to get our shit together in any other aspect of our life. So, I'm super excited to welcome Naihomy to the podcast. Naihomy, thank you for being here. I am so excited to dive into all things wellness on today's show.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, Janice. I think it's such an important topic that is often gets missed or not included in the wealth conversation. So I'm excited that we're talking about it today.
Absolutely. All right. So let's start off with an introduction. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Sure. So, hi, everybody. My name is Naihomy Jerez. I am a food and hormone health coach for women of color. I teach women how to use food and lifestyle to balance the hormones, heal their bodies, and absolutely live their best life. I am Dominican. I'm a mom of two. I was raised in the Bronx, and I became passionate about this through my own health journey.
So I'm curious. So this was not your original career?
No, I spent 12 years in corporate before I became a full-time entrepreneur and health coach. Yeah.
What were you doing in corporate?
I used to work for digital advertising. So all the commercials that you see on the internet, I did work for TV for a little while. So I know all the back end of how companies try to convince you to buy their products.
Well, and from what I know about that industry, it's very high stress. It's very fast moving. It can be a lot of travel, and I can imagine that the environment might not always be conducive to you being able to take care of yourself physically. And I'm wondering if you experienced any of that in your career.
Yeah, I did. It was very hard because there was long commutes involved. There are extremely tight deadlines. There are many campaigns happening at the same time. There is some travel involved. And my particular position was in account management under the sales department. So I was in charge of client experience from inception all the way down to invoicing. So I had to communicate with a lot of people, a lot of teams. And as I said, everything was on a deadline. So it was hard to try and manage what your own needs were versus what the job required of me.
Yeah, I can imagine there's folks in the industry also that feel like they're almost tied to their phones and devices. You got to be on call because there could be an emergency at any point and you got to be able and willing to respond.
Yeah, absolutely. There were sometimes campaigns launching on weekends, or I know especially the operations team would be up at midnight to make sure that everything was up and running, taking screenshots. So yeah, very always on type of job.
Yeah. So tell me how your journey into now having this new career as a wellness coach evolved.
It found me, I always like to say, because I never thought I would be an entrepreneur. This would be my career. After I had two children while working in corporate, after my second son, I was just like, I really want to get it together. And by that, I mean, I looked at myself in the mirror. I didn't recognize myself. I had gained a lot of weight during pregnancy, and I was just very sad. And I just wanted to feel like myself again. But also, I was not the type of person to do crash dieting or to do restriction or to make myself feel so sick just for getting some physical results. So I decided I was going to try the old school way, like try with eating and try with exercising. So I started with going to the gym. Then through work, actually, I was able to work with a nutritionist for 2 years. I ended up losing 50 pounds. And at that time, I was like, oh, this is great. But you know what? Everybody gains the weight back. So I'm not going to get too attached to this. I'll just be happy for now. And then next year, I'm just going to have to explain to everybody how I gained all the way back. Like, this is my mindset. So I was okay. So then year two came. That's when it clicked for me because I was able to maintain my weight. I was not restricting. I was eating everything I like to eat. I was living my best life. I had 2-year-old and a 4-year-old or whatever their age was. I was like, man, why does no one else know about this? Like there were other parents or moms around, new moms around the time I had my kids, and everybody was just, from what I noticed, depressed, not being able to make change, going through crazy diets that were affecting their health. And that's when it clicked for me. I'm like, I need to share this with my community. I must share how you can live your life, enjoy your food, still eat your rice and beans and tostones or whatever you want to eat, and take good care of yourself while you have your career, while you have small kids. And that's when like the little seed was planted of starting this.
Yeah, there's so many entrepreneurs who have like that origin story, and it typically does evolve from like your own personal journey. For me, obviously, I got into the world of personal finance because I was a fucking mess financially. And I'm like, this can't be the only option. There has to be people out there who know what they're doing. And then once you're exposed to just this new way of thinking, you realize that your perspective was so limited, right? And I think when I recall in my own childhood, kind of what I saw around physical health, it was the extreme dieting. It was the pills and the freaking rice cake diet and just like extreme stuff. I don't know anybody in my household who like would go to the gym. It just wasn't a thing. You know, you just kind of suffered to lose some weight. And it was always for like some temporary goal. Either you're going to get married and you want to lose weight for the wedding or whatever. But there was never a person who I can think of that was like pursuing health as like just a lifestyle. So I'm curious what you saw growing up in that perspective.
Same. I didn't see anything of what I was doing. Like there was no time for exercise. People didn't really know how to do it. It was actually talking about money, like almost a waste to pay for something like that. I myself dabbled into pills and juices, but it lasted all of like a day because I was like, oh, this feels terrible. Never mind. But that has been the experience as well. Or it's like the timeline that you mentioned too. It's like for the summer, for the wedding, for my birthday, but it's never something that you continue doing because it's too hard or it takes too much time or it's too expensive. So I saw the same things until something that you mentioned was different ways of thinking. For example, when I went to college, I would see the parent and the child exercising together. Like, what? Or when I was in corporate, that's actually something I started to notice. I would be like, why do the white women come back looking like nothing happened to them? And why do Hispanic women suffer so much? Like, we can't be that different. Sure, socioeconomic status, resources, how they grew up. And I started to pay attention and I'm like, they're always in their gym clothes, or they're always coming in with their hair wet, saying they came from a workout class, or they're leaving early because they're going to catch a workout class. And I'm like, there are just some things that they're doing versus us. And I just, for some reason, was very curious about that and noticed the patterns. And I was like, what about if I tried that?
Absolutely. So I'm curious because when we think about our cultural food, and you know, I'm a food blogger on top of doing the whole like personal finance thing. And I think there's this perception that our food is unhealthy. And therefore, if we want to lose weight, we must get away from it. Like you can't be eating rice and beans. Let me tell you, every time I go to a Puerto Rican restaurant, right? And I send a picture to my mom. She's like, ay, la dieta, you're going to have to go do Zumba. And I'm like, why are we demonizing our food? Why do you think that happens?
I think it happens because that's what we've been taught from outsiders. First of all, the diet industry, right, is vastly led white people. And a lot of the dietitians and nutritionists, also the vast majority that go into these fields are not people of color. Now it's starting to rise, but it hasn't been. So usually when you go to the doctor and they see that your blood sugar is creeping up or your cholesterol, your high blood pressure, the only thing they do is that they hand you this list, if that, of foods you should avoid and foods you shouldn't be eating. And guess what's on there? There's rice and there's all the starches and there's the potato. And guess what most of our food is based on? Starches. So I think that that's one reason why. Another thing is that I think that as we've immigrated and come to the United States, the way we build our foods look a little bit different. The way we move for the foods we consume has been a little bit different. And the ingredients that we're using to make our foods are definitely different. So not only are we talking about food now, but we're talking about lifestyle and being displaced from our countries of origin, where we're moving different, we're sweating a lot more just existing on the islands. So it just becomes different. So it's so demonized, and they tell you as something that's not good, but it's vastly out of context or understanding.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've had to reframe the idea of like what healthy is, because I think I'm an elder millennial. So I definitely grew up with like the cosmopolitan magazines and like the celebrity paparazzi magazines that it's like making fun of people who have cellulite. Like, which of your favorite celebrities looks like shit on the beach? And it's just like we are always being bombarded with these messages of what beauty standards are, what health looks like. And it's hard to reframe that when we don't see a lot of examples of what that looks like in our community. And I think what happens for a lot of us, especially like women and especially moms, there is still a lot of this internalized guilt that comes from choosing to prioritize your health, for deciding that, you know what, I need to hire a babysitter because I need to go to the gym for an hour. There's like this cultural, like, oh my God, who does she think she is to be like prioritizing herself? How selfish. What do you say to people who are dealing with that messaging either in their households or they have people around them kind of judging them for wanting to prioritize their health?
Yeah, absolutely. It is something that happens a lot. And this is why I tend to do a lot of mindset work with my own clients, because technically people know what to do. Like they know they should be moving more and maybe eating more vegetables and drinking more water. But all of these thoughts and just pressures from our own culture keeps us from doing it and keeps us stuck. So technically, or when I speak to my clients about this, is how do you deal with the emotions that come up and still do it? How do you give people their space to think and say whatever it is that they need to, because they just don't understand the journey that you're going on, and still make it okay for you to do it? Technically, we are changing patterns. Nobody tells you anything about going to college or getting your master's or anything like that, like the careers that you're getting. But the second you take time away for yourself, that is maybe not to make money, to go to the gym for an hour or to make yourself something to eat or choosing something different, everybody has something to say about it. And that's something I've experienced in my own journey. And yeah, it stings in the beginning. But what I was just telling one of my clients is, you are doing something different. You are stepping into a different version of yourself. And no one else is going to experience feeling like shit but yourself in your own body. So learning how to honor yourself and do what it is that you need to protect your health, that is a decision that you need to make, and also give everybody their time and space to have certain thoughts about it.
Absolutely. I love that perspective because there is so much mindset work that goes into shifting these narratives that we have going through our heads. So, one of the things that we connected on social media was this viral post from the Kellogg cereal CEO, where he was proudly boasting about the fact that on CNBC, you know, talking obviously to stockholders about their new campaign where they are pushing cereal for dinner because inflation is so fucking high and people are literally having to choose what to put on the dinner table because, you know, as much as it sucks in our capitalist society, the ability to access healthy food is a privilege that comes with money. So I want to know from you, why do we need to be prioritizing our health and how is it intricately tied to the wealth building journey?
It's intricately tied because you need to be able to make your money, whether using your mind or using your physical body. So there is a point where your body is just going to give out. So you can be making all the money in the world, and if your body says enough, you're going to end up on bed rest. You're going to end up wiped out. And how are you going to make money then? Our benefits also barely cover time off for when you're not feeling well. We don't even get maternity leave covered well. So imagine if you just get really sick. Imagine if your body just gives out. It's not possible for you to continue making money. It's not possible for you to think clearly to be able to do whatever it is, either climb the corporate ladder, become an entrepreneur, whatever your decision and your choices about how to increase your income. If you're investing, you don't even know how to start or what to pick or how to manage it. You don't have the mental capacity to be able to hold space for other conversations that include wealth building, however you choose to do it, if you feel so ill in your body.
Yeah, I mean, I know people who are on disability for chronic illnesses, and it's like you will lose those benefits if you make a certain amount of money. Like there's thresholds to maintain this level of poverty that gets you access to disability benefits, which I'm just like, isn't the point for us to like help people get out of the struggle, not incentivize them to stay there because then they're going to lose their benefits? It's such a mind fuck, like how things operate in the society where it's like once you've gotten to that place where poverty is a real thing, it is so hard to get out when you are in survival mode. It is impossible to make decisions about your diet and exercise and just basic things that people with access to resources can prioritize. So I really want everybody who's listening to this, like, if you're the type of person who has never prioritized their physical health, which I was one of those people for the longest time, I was like, I will hustle, I will make money, I will do all the things, but we'll figure out the health shit later. It catches up with you. You literally cannot afford to ignore it because it's going to find you one way or another. And when it is one of those things that creeps up on you after so much time of ignoring it, it's usually a harder hill to climb back up to get back to a place where you are feeling good.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say don't ignore it. There is always signs. Your body's always talking to you.
Can you tell us about some signs? Because I think there's a lot of people who might be experiencing like some early signs of burnout or like their health is just not where it needs to be, but they might even recognize it because they're just so used to like feeling like shit.
Yes, that's another thing. When you're used to feeling like shit all the time, you don't even know what it is to feel good. You don't know how sick you are and how bad you feel. Some symptoms that people get when they're either burned out or they're creeping up on chronic illnesses is your periods are irregular. If you are a woman and you are not in perimenopause yet, you might get hangry. You want to snack all the time. You're consistently getting migraines. You have acne. You have discoloration around your neck or like these little skin tacks. You're in a bad mood all the time. You sleep and sleep and sleep and you still wake up tired, or you're not able to fall asleep and stay asleep. Those are all like little clues that your body's giving you. You have some sort of autoimmune condition happening, or your hair is falling out, your nails are brittle. There's infertility in here for those who are trying to conceive. You cannot lose weight for whatever you do, especially if you're crash dieting and you're like, I used to do all these things before and nothing's working. I'm just gaining weight. Those are all signs that your body is in distress.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of people listening to this there. I'm like, oh my gosh, she's calling me out. I am stressed. So how do we start, right? Because the same way that when people first start learning about financial literacy, it can feel so overwhelming. It's like you feel like you got to do all the things. And then you're just like, you know what? I'm not going to do anything because I'm just like exhausted thinking about all these changes that I need to make in my life. So if you were consulting someone who starting from the beginning, I have no idea what I should be doing physical activity wise, eating wise, what are some initial steps you would recommend that folks take?
One of the initial steps is choosing your why. Like, why are you doing this? Not choosing an idea on the fly or having a deadline on your why, like a summer or a wedding or something. It's just really deciding that this is the change, the permanent change that you want to make for your life, and you're going to go through with it no matter what's coming up. That's one. Two is not starting everything at once, because that is extremely stressful and that is not the point, because stress management is part of holistic health, and you can be eating the most perfect diet and have the most perfect gym routine. If you're stressed out of your mind, you will drive yourself straight into chronic illness as well. So one of the first things is, are you drinking water throughout the day? Are you hydrated?
What if I hate water, Naomi? What if I cannot stand the taste of water? What do we do?
What if you hate water? You can add some, let's say, lemon to that. some oranges, cucumbers, like something to flavor it. Seltzer water is also an option. Clean flavored seltzers, some of them do are high in chemicals. And it's just something to start to get used to. It's probably a thought that you hate water for whatever reason. Maybe you like it warmer, maybe you like it colder. Maybe you can put some herbal teas in there and make it cold. That's actually something that I'm doing right now. So if you hate water, that's some place to start. I also like having a nice cup. I can't be having these floppy plastic cups. I just, I need it to be an experience.
Spend the money, make it a bougie, like fancy Stanley cup or whatever.
Yeah, get yourself a nice cup that you're going to be happy to be holding around and have it tied to your hip. Another thing is starting with something simple. Let's say if it's food wise or exercise wise. So if it's food, I would just say start with either one meal, like adjusting one meal, or get this, just adding one vegetable to the meals that you're having. That's it.
So we don't need to become a vegan and work out 7 days a week on week 1 of this transformational journey.
Don't get me started on veganism.
Yeah, I want to hear about it because, I think it really, it goes back to this idea that demonizes our food, because obviously we are a meat and potatoes, plátanos, if you will, culture. I'm Puerto Rican. I know you're Dominican. And the thought of me giving up meat is paque, like it cannot be. Our ancestors have survived for thousands of years eating this stuff. So it can't be the food. It has to be more than that. It has to be the fucking food industry and all of the bullshit artificial colorings and all the shit they're putting in our seasonings, because none of that stuff was around during the ancestors. They were out here using plants from the forest. They're out here using natural seeds for coloring. They're not out here using freaking Goya sazon.
So something that you pointed out though is our ancestors versus us. And the truth is that the quality of our soil is not the same. We're not eating seasonally and locally anymore. Everything is flown in from many different areas of the world. So it just doesn't even coincide with seasonality and what our ancestors would be eating, because we're getting things from all over. They're being falsely ripened, they're adding chemicals to it. So even if your ancestors were eating a mango and we're eating a mango, it's just technically not a one-to-one. So that's something to keep in mind. And that is a reason why supplementation is kind of important now, because even our soil is so important to how nutrient dense our food is. And they're just not anymore.
So when you say supplementation, what does that mean?
Vitamins. Sometimes we have to take some vitamins depending on what your needs are. So I'm not going to go off on and recommending anything right now, but it affects our microbiome, which is probably something that it's been spoken about a lot recently. So it just has so many effects. That's one. Two is what you mentioned, what they're putting in our food. That is chemical versus coming from plants and naturally colored with beets and carrots and really rich foods. Instead, they're using red 40 and yellow 5 and lake blue 15 or whatever it is. So those are all toxic chemicals that really affect us, that cause a lot of inflammation. And we think that we're eating this clean plate of rice and beans, but now the oil that you're using is inflammatory, because instead of using lard or avocado oil or something like that, you're using highly inflammatory seed oils. And then you're seasoning your beans and you're putting red 40 in your beans and you're eating enriched rice that has all these added vitamins and minerals that maybe you won't need. So now all of a sudden this place of rice and beans becomes different and it's not the same. So there's just a lot of different levels. And I know you touched on veganism for a second. There's a difference between wanting to be plant-based and eating more plants and just buying all of the processed vegan foods that are out there. Is just as toxic as eating any other highly processed foods. You cannot strip away all the fats and all of the carbs or whatever it is from a food, usually the fats, and the flavor has to be reintroduced to these foods somehow. So they'll add chemicals or they'll add a shit ton of sugar to it. And all of a sudden you're here is oh, I'm vegan. I'm not eating this and I'm not eating that. But what are you actually eating?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You got to start looking at those ingredient labels, y'all, because those low fat things, they will have to replace that fat with something. It's usually thickeners, it's usually artificial ingredients. And I know a couple of vegans who are not healthy at all because they think that like the key to veganism is eating like plant-based mac and cheese. And I'm like, that can't be the move, y'all. That can't be the move.
And it's hard to get full. You need a lot more extra calories. And usually they're replacing their fullness that comes from protein with carbohydrates. So they're eating an extremely high carb diet, which can lead you like into diabetes. And sure, they too all the time is like, oh, no cholesterol. But I think that that's like lower on the totem pole from what you need to be worrying about.
Is organic actually worth it? Because, when we think about the price differential between conventionally grown foods and organic foods, I think can be a cost prohibitive thing for a lot of folks, especially in our communities where access to resources are limited. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, for sure. I do think it's worth it for those who need to make a choice and a decision. There is this list called the Dirty Dozen, which are priority for buying organic. And then there's another list called the Clean 15. You can just go ahead and Google it. And those are safer to buy non organic. Usually, if I'm making a decision, if it's something that you eat without peeling, let's say berries, I like to get those organic always. There's no way to really clean off the pesticides, the synthetic chemicals that they put on it. And not to say that organic foods do not have pesticides, they do, but it's just a cleaner version of it. They're not synthetic Roundup weed killers that they're putting on there. So, for example, berries, I like to buy organic when possible. Things like, let's say, avocados or bananas that have a clear peel that you're peeling off and eating the insides, that I'm a little bit more better off buying non-organic. But if you want an actual guide, there is the Dirty Dozen and Clean 15 in case you want to know which way to go when you're spending your money.
Okay, we'll make sure to include those links in the episode show notes.
Yeah.
Now, for folks, especially I think in the older generations, we see like our elders getting older and not necessarily making great health decisions. And inevitably, if you are a caretaker or you are going to be a caretaker for these folks, that shit gets hella frustrating. When you're like, why do y'all keep doing this shit and getting sicker and sicker when I'm trying to tell y'all to do something different? How do we deal with this? How do we deal with the elders that don't want to listen to why their health is important?
Yeah, it's one of the most frustrating things, I have to say. I'm in it too. All my clients are in it. I think that sometimes you just have to let them be. And it is hella frustrating. And we are the caretakers, and you're like, dude, this can stop if you kind of switched up XYZ. But sometimes they don't want to listen. Like, they still probably see you as a child. They think that you don't know anything. And until they don't see it on Univision or their best friend tells them about it, or they see, I've literally had to send my clients TikToks.
Damn.
They're like, can you please send me a Spanish TikTok explaining why seed oils are so bad so I can share it with my 70-year-old mom? Can you believe that?
Damn. I guess, if she listens to TikTok. All right.
Yes, I've had to do that. So a few things is you living in your new identity, you taking really good care of yourself, you showing up, not suffering from what they might have already at this age. And we're talking millennials. So you're probably like very near 40 or in your 40s and at some capacity, then it becomes a little eye-opening for them. So I don't want you to give up on them. Something that doesn't work as with kids is being pushy. So please don't be pushy. But what I have done is I've cooked for them and I've invited them to try new things, and they actually enjoy it. And sometimes it makes them curious and they go ahead and try it themselves. It's just an invitation. Or you gift them certain food products, even though some grandmas and grandpas are out here being so naughty. The kids buy it for them and then they go right back to the store and buy Goya products, so practice your patience. So that's another thing, but it can be very frustrating, and it's just such a huge learning curve. And something that we also have to think about is what was their food story and their lack of food, and they probably going to bed hungry and access and all that. So it's really hard to make a mind shift for them as to why they need to pay an extra $7 for a smaller tub of actual real butter versus a gajillion gallon
For the country crock.
for Country Crock or Parkway or something like that. It's really like hard to make the math happen. Is exactly like when you try and get them to invest in the stock market and they're like, ay, pero mi dinero is going away. And you're like, no, wait a second, it doesn't work like that. I would say don't be pushy, live in your true purpose and invite them to eat, buy them the foods because it can be very frustrating.
Yeah, and I think on the flip side too, especially for parents, you can definitely be a role model to your children when it comes to physical health. So I'm curious for you what that looks like for folks who want to be that model for their kids as far as prioritizing their physical health.
Yeah, that's the flip of the coin. We are getting older. There's nowhere to stop it. We need to find ways to protect our health. And eventually, there's going to be people who are going to be caretakers for us. And the way you take care of yourself now is showing love for your family. Because I know of friends and loved ones now who are taking care of parents who are so young that because they have not prioritized their health. Now they've lost their autonomy. They've lost their ability to take care of themselves. And that's super sad. And on the flip side, there's parents who are 80 years old who are still 100% taking care of themselves and their kids doesn't have to worry about them falling and breaking something and not being able to move or cook for themselves. I think the microwave culture, right? Like everything's right now and everything's super fast. But let's say you live for another 50 years. How do you want to be? Do you want to be bedridden? Do you want to be tied to your dialysis clinic? Do you want to have a gallon size Ziploc bag full of medication? So all of these things I love to think about, like what can I do now that will benefit me 10 years from now, 20 years from now? And when it comes to younger generations and kids, is just educating them. I have two boys and they're currently going to be like 10 and 8, and I teach them about food labels. I teach them about how food feels in their body. They see me going to the gym every single week. They see their dad going to the gym. It's something that we speak about as family, and trust me, it's not an easy process because other loved ones might be eating all the stuff that's unhealthy, and my kids question and they ask like, why can't they eat that and why can't they have that? And I really never say like, because I said so, probably how we were raised, or I try and go into detail of when you eat this, you feel sick. Yes, they're eating it, but no one should be eating that. And it's their choice. Everybody makes a choice. And in this family, unfortunately, we don't eat those foods. It's really going to hurt you. And
Yeah.
there's been times where I let them have it and then their stomach hurts. And then I build that bridge for them. I'm like, this happened because you ate XYZ.
There you go. Sometimes you need to learn by trial and error. The
Facts.
same way you do with money. All right. So I think there's a lot of people who know they want to prioritize their physical health, but they don't necessarily feel like they have the support system around them to make that happen. And so when we think about moms juggling all the responsibilities of maybe you're a working mom and you're raising small kids and you're like, Naomi, how the hell am I supposed to prioritize my physical health when like literally my family expects me to be cooking all the meals and doing all the shopping and cleaning the house? When and how am I supposed to do this? And I want
Yeah,
to know from
that's
you, what are your best tips for like carving out those boundaries and like getting a little selfish with your time?
absolutely. You hit the nail right on the head. So, one of the first things I do is create space for my clients because they do come in. And honestly, we put a lot of responsibility on ourselves that no one asked us about
Mm-hmm.
or for. Like, we just self impose it on ourselves. And for whatever reason, like maybe we don't like the way somebody else does something, or maybe we're too shy to ask for help. Like, there's just so many things happening. And part of it too is just feeling the emotions of asking somebody, just being okay with however your partner cuts the strawberries versus how you cut the strawberries. Trust me, it like gets intense. So it's carving out this time, being very realistic, even if it doesn't feel good, of what time do you have available? How can you make this work? How can you at least start? And then building from there. And it might look like you're just working out at home and you're using, I don't know, a sack of rice to lift weights, or you're doing some body weights, there's a gazillion videos on YouTube where you can just go and find something, or you can grab one vegetable when you do your groceries.
Mhm.
And it can be it we make health and wellness so big of a task. And if we can't do all of the things at one time, then we do nothing
Mhm.
because it's really hard. But if we really break it down, and that's what I did, because I told myself, okay, I don't have money to pay for a nanny. I don't have money for this, but what can I do with what I have? And that
Yeah.
was the question I asked myself. And I'm like, okay, I can go to the gym one time a week. So that's what I did. And I stayed consistent with that.
Mhm.
I can meal prep 2 lunches for myself for during the week. And I started with that. And then you get to build from there.
Yeah.
So instead of thinking of all the reasons of why it's not possible, I can guarantee you there is a way to make it possible. And it's just finding it.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that. It really is about becoming a problem solver versus letting the problems be the reason why you don't do anything. It can be something as simple as joining a gym that offers childcare so that you don't have to worry about who's going to take care of your kid because you can keep an eye on them while you're there on the treadmill. Or it could be instead of spending hours a week in the grocery store, you decide, you know what, I'm going to sign up for Instacart or I'm going to do Walmart, pickup or whatever, just so that you're taking things off of your plate that are going to be time suckers that you know need to happen, but you don't necessarily need to be the one to do them all the time. So take your kids to the park. I mean, if you don't have money for a gym membership, let them exhaust themselves while they're running around and mommy is doing her workout.
Yeah, chase them. It's a great workout.
Yeah, there you go. It really is about being creative. And I think it's also, we have to get really comfortable with asking for help,
Yes.
which I think is such a hard thing for so many of us to do because there's this perception of, well, that means I don't have it all together, or I'm not a good mom, or I'm weak. And it's like, y'all, when we think about these moms who are stay at home mothers, who are at the Pilates fucking studio, who are getting gourmet meals delivered to their house, they are the experts in outsourcing shit, even though they're stay at home moms. Like, it doesn't mean that you can't ask for help.
Absolutely. They have nannies and they go out and do things. You don't have to be with your kids 24/7. And this goes for women who don't have kids as well, where they feel the need to take care of every single detail when it comes to either their parents or a partner or some sort of loved one, instead of asking for help from other siblings or literally just calling and presiona dos para español. Like there are representatives out here who speak Spanish. There are people in the supermarket who pre-chop fruits and vegetables for you. But there's always this mind drama of spending an extra dollar or two to save time.
Yeah, I would argue that time is actually like your most valuable resource, and you need to get really good at not wasting that shit doing something that you could outsource for a couple dollars.
Yes. And seeing the value in that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that comes back to why it's important to prioritize your health and wellness when it comes to even the conversation around your financial health, because it's all tied together, y'all. And so, Naomi, I love what you're doing. I love to see more mujeres in our community who are empowering us in all aspects of our lives. I want folks to know how they can work with you and where they can find you.
Yes, absolutely. You can find me on Instagram at Naihomy Jerez and also on my website at www.naihomyjerez.com. On there, I have free resources where you can download my clean grocery list. You don't have to stress about where to start. I just gave it to you, the pictures and the links. So go grab that. It's if you want to start somewhere and you're super inspired, that's a place to start. And also, I invite you to book a consultation call with me. I have one on one coaching where we work together for 6 months and really tailor and personalize your health and wellness experience for you. Don't keep putting this off because, like Janice said, it will catch up to you. And then it's going to be even harder. And it can probably become your worst fear, where it is restrictive and you are tied to certain medical things that you don't want. So, it is absolutely of value to make this a priority in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. Your health is not something to play with as well as your money. So, Naomi, thank you so much for the work that you're doing. Super excited to have you here. And also, congratulations on your book deal. I understand you have a book that's coming out next year. Is that correct?
No.
No, why do I feel like I saw you on Instagram that you have a book coming out?
Oh my God.
When are
I
we
don't
gonna
know.
manifest this?
We're going to manifest it.
Hell yeah.
People have been asking me for a book forever. And I'm like,
I want to see so many more like, cookbooks, recipe books, all those things that are not demonizing our fucking diets because it's just, I want to be able to enjoy all the foods that are native to our culture, but also do it in a way that like is going to allow me to be here for the next, 30, 40, 50, 60 years.
yeah, it's been about 4 years where people are like, I just wish you had a book like with your recipes.
We're putting this out there in the universe. We're manifesting a book deal. I said it first here.
I know. I'm going to call you to walk me through that because, girl,
I got you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.